So the book is called The Holy Wild, a Heathen Bible for the Untamed Woman. And we'll start with heathen because I think that's kind of the most pertinent word. So heathen, the etymology of the word is inhabiting uncultivated land or dweller on the heath. So even though it's been cast in a more negative light like witch or pagan, it really just means a return to the land and a return to what was before our psyches were built up, before our religious systems were very built up and weighted down by patriarchy. So we are stripping away all that is not our authentic spirituality and returning to, first of all, the elements or our connection to earth, but then more importantly almost is this need to return to the embodied spiritual. So knowing the body as holy, movement as holy, emotions as holy, sensuality as holy, sexuality as holy. So returning to all of that, and knowing it as sacred instead of sinful. Wild spirituality is very much all of that. It is a return to wildness, and not wildness as in emotionally immature or out of control or irrational, but wildness as in those parts of ourselves that we suppressed during childhood because we either thought we were going to be perceived as out of control, or we were going to be too seen or too out there or made fun of. Return to our wildness as in those parts of ourselves that are most unique to our souls. So what makes you uniquely you? What makes your story the greatest myth ever told? All of that is integral to our wildness and integral to our witchcraft. Witchcraft is a growing practice, so increasingly popular, and it is a craft, so an art of reconnecting with the earth, first of all, sometimes with deity, but not always with deity. And a return to the old ways, much like wild spirituality or heathen spirituality. So there's an element of activism to witchcraft, however, because it's a dismantling of the systems that have suppressed the feminine over time. And by the feminine, the wild feminine, I don't only mean female. I'm not speaking in terms of gender at all. I'm speaking in terms of sensuality, sexuality, emotional integrity, the right to speak and be heard, intuition. So these aspects that I relate to the maiden, mother, crone, triple goddess archetype. But to me, it doesn't matter whether you use these words or not, whether you call them wild feminine or you call them goddess or maiden, mother, crone. That doesn't matter, because it's really what's underneath all of that we're trying to reclaim and reintegrate into our society, into the global community. So all of healing, whether it's personal healing or it's societal healing, all of healing is just all about awareness and integration. So my hope is that this book does that for the reader, that there's an awareness that's offered, but then there's also this opportunity for meaningful integration into the reader's life, lived out loud witchcraft, and also the work that they do in the world. The book is organized into 5 different books. So there's the Book of Earth, Book of Water, Book of Fire, Book of Air, and Book of Ether. And each of those 5 books then has 3 different parts, which are verses, rituals, and magic. So the verses chapters are are very much about offering this kind of poetic ode to the reader, and also to the element itself, and also to this revisioned archetype. And those vary from book to book, but this revisioning of some wild feminine archetype. And then where does that archetype meet your story, the reader's story? So in the verses chapters, my hope is that the reader will not only be able to enjoy the poetry and the story that's offered, but also be able to use the prompts that are opportunities for telling their own story, and perhaps looking at their own story in a new way or through a new lens. And then the rituals chapters are different kind of practical magic rituals. There's some that are more elaborate, but most of them are very accessible rituals that can be done anywhere. So not just in the wilds, but also, you know, in a kitchen or a living room. And these rituals are opportunities for integrating the lessons of that particular element. And then finally, the magic chapters, those are pathworking experiences, as in visualization or guided meditations for meeting that element, and examining how the different aspects of that element relate to the reader's psyche. First and foremost, an understanding of their own unique stories as important, as holy, as just as sacred as any story we might read in any sacred text. And also an understanding of the body as holy, the flesh as holy, the blood as holy, and then a connection between that, between the sanctity of body and the sanctity of earth, because this reverence for earth is very much tied to the reverence for flesh and blood. So reclaiming this understanding of wild spirituality is necessary. That's what I hope the reader will take away.